You can read it everywhere. High performance is the term of the hour. Transform your life in 30 days, peak performance routines, and upgrade your operating system. It all sounds very cool on paper, but I've never actually seen a program that works in real life. So I decided what I always do in those situations. I run a little self-experiment. In this case, I tested the Cellular Method by Jorn Kirkels. But how did I even end up here? To explain that, we have to rewind a couple of weeks back because I came across this guy online, Jorn Kirkels. At first, he felt like a little bit of this guy. He's too extreme to be real. He did cold plunges, breath works, lab tests, crazy morning routines. And apparently he was working with some of the biggest entrepreneurs, showing insane results that honestly looked a little bit unbelievable. And with things like this, I don't trust a single screenshot. I don't trust a single testimonial. I always want to see it for myself. So I invited him onto my podcast because I wanted to hear firsthand how he actually does it. And in the episode, we talked about all the boring biological stuff that actually runs your life behind the scenes. So I texted him afterwards and I said, thanks for coming on today. But one question still stuck with me. Can you really change someone's life in 5 weeks? And a few minutes later, he replied with only 2 words. And that's how everything started. Because what happened over the next 5 weeks was insane. And it all started in week 1, where I learned something about myself that I wasn't really ready to admit. And he doesn't really know that I'm making this video because I wanted an honest experience. We haven't done a vlog in a very long time, but this time it is for a self-test. Today is actually the start of it. So it starts very easy. It's basically like an intake form that I have to fill in. And it says here it takes around 50 minutes to complete that. Before anything could change, I had to see where I was actually standing. So Jorn sent me over a lot of intake questions, and it was actually 52 questions about my routines, my sleep, my stress, my habits, nutrition, screen time, training patterns, all of that. And I was filling in the answers, and it wasn't really nice to see because what I saw for myself is that I had like a lot of late dinners after podcast recordings. I had insanely high screen time of 9-10 hours. Okay, don't judge me. Irregular workouts, and also my recovery curve on my Whoop that I'm having since more than 3 years went up and down like a roller coaster. And all this data showed a much clearer picture of myself than I expected and maybe even hoped for. Today is day 2 of testing the high performance routine of Jorn and his team, and he sent me actually 2 packages. Let's unpack them together. I always wanted to do one of those fun unpacking videos. Okay, so what is the first thing that he sent to me? So this is already pretty cool. I got a lot of stuff sent already, like after 1 day of just starting to work with him. I filled out the questionnaire, and within less than 24 hours I already have like my first thing that I can improve and things that we already can work on. This sounds like a really long ad, but I'm just very blown away of like all the stuff that has happened in the past 48 hours after just signing up with him, and let's say like, hey, let's do this experience together and let's see what I can do for you. In week 1, it was not about making big changes, right? It was about paying attention to the small things, creating a structure and getting the basics right. So he ordered me to do early dinners, set up screen blockers at night, take the magnesium before bed, and also have like a small run before going to the studio. It felt like a little bit of warming up phase for what came to be a very long run. And while I was settling in those new habits, the next step was already awaiting, and this was the blood test. And the blood test would reveal something that I would have never expected, honestly. By week 2, the routines slowly started to kick in. I had no phone, early bedtimes. I had to tape my mouth, which was a really weird experience at the beginning. I needed to breathe, train, eat, and of course, repeat everything every single day. In week 2, we also started to dig a little bit deeper. So we didn't only look from the outside in, so based on guesswork and based on kind of like the data that I gave him to say like, this is how I sleep. But we also looked from the inside out and tried to get like real data. And the real data we tried to get in form of a blood analysis. And before we could do the test, there was only one problem. I really hate needles. I hate everything with blood, and I was genuinely afraid that I'm gonna pass out. But you can see it for yourself if that really happened. The guy told me that they're gonna check 52 different markers in my blood, like hormones, inflammations, vitamins, liver, kidney, and everything else. I'm not a doctor, but it really seemed to be like the full picture. We unfortunately didn't get the viral clip of me passing out, but it was a super nice experience because I've never got my blood drawn here in the studio. So that's a very first in the studio, of course. In 7 days, we should get the results, and then we can go much more into detail on my performance, nutrition, and everything like much more tailored to me. But what I didn't know back then, that actually the biggest challenge of this program was just ahead of me. Week 3, was the first week where things started to slip again. The weeks got heavier, I had late nights in the studio for recordings, the dinners got pushed back, and my sleep slowly fell apart without me even noticing. The routines that felt so solid the first few days suddenly felt really hard to follow again. I spent more and more time on my phone, scrolling mindlessly without thinking for hours, drifting into the same old habits that I wanted to break. And the interesting part was that because Jorn had access to my Whoop data, he could literally see everything changing in real time. I had lower sleep quality, my HRV was dropping, I had a resting heart rate that was climbing up like crazy, and my daily strain was high even though I didn't work out. And in the first moment in this whole journey, I genuinely felt like quitting. Because when everything gets busy, taking care of yourself really feels like another task that you don't have any energy for. And I really had one of those weeks where everything felt heavier than usual. And when I had my weekly check-in with Jorn, he didn't really tell me to try harder. He didn't list out a list of habits that I knew I had skipped. He instead asked me one question: why are you doing this in the first place? And that question changed everything. It made me pause, and for the first time in weeks, it pulled me out of all the chaos. It reminded me why I started this experiment in the first place. In this conversation, we talked a lot about direction, about identity, and also like what is the version of myself that I'm actually working towards. And suddenly the routines, they didn't feel like pressure anymore. They felt like a path. This call made me realize something really, really important. Because improving your health is not just about the habits. It's about the story that you tell yourself, and even that sounds a little bit spiritual, it's really the standards that you choose to live by. And the timing of this motivational boost couldn't have been better because the blood results arrived. And they were about to change the entire experiment. In week 4, things started finally to fall into place and finally also to make a little bit more sense. And the good news was that overall, I'm very healthy, which once you pass 30 is also something that you don't really take for granted anymore. But the results also showed the reasons why I felt how I felt the past 3 or 4 years running my business. I had low testosterone, low vitamin D, and low omega-3. Once the blood results were in, Jorn really went quickly to work and made me a customized template and structure for my supplements. So I had to get vitamin D3 and K2, omega-3 with my first meal, and also zinc for my hormonal balance. And the interesting part was that I quickly felt the difference. Maybe it was a little bit of placebo, but within the first few days, I really felt that my mornings felt much lighter. My motivation also started to come back, and also my recovery trends on my Whoop I could see increasing. And the routines that felt really, really heavy in week 3 suddenly became a lot easier to follow. And this was also the moment where I felt a little bit my energy shift towards this whole experiment. And I shifted gears in motivation, and my days started to look like this. I woke up, I breathed, I ran, I stretched, I trained, I focused. And with everything dialed in, there was only one thing left to see: the final result. One thing that was really, really surprising to me is that these 5 weeks didn't change my life because of some really extreme routine. They changed it because of very small things that I repeated every single day. For example, I slept a little bit better. I took one supplement in the morning. I did a small run before work, or I ate a little bit my dinner before my body was already tired. I had calmer evenings, maybe less screen times. But when you stack all those kind of like small habits, those small momentums together, you can really feel how it changes your body and your mind over a long time. And once I started feeling the difference, saying no to like those small temptations became also much easier. Saying no, for example, to the late afternoon coffee. Also the endless scrolling, all those kind of like short dopamine hits, it's really easy to say no if all your other disciplines and habits aren't checked. Yeah, you just don't avoid them because you now have all of a sudden this superhuman discipline. You really avoid them because you finally understand what they cost you. And I also had a couple of hard results that I'm quite proud of. My sleep became much more consistent. My HRV finally climbed to 62, which I've never had in 3 years using my Whoop. My resting heart rate also dropped to 48, which also never happened in my Whoop numbers history. So it was really nice that I could also have like some hard facts and like hard changes that I never thought was possible 5 weeks ago. Like with everything in life, numbers aren't everything, but they really reflect how you might feel. I definitely felt much more calm, much more focused, and far more stable throughout the day. So the whole experiment started with one question. Can you really change someone's life in 5 weeks? And the definite answer is yes, you can. But you don't do it alone, and you can't do it alone. Having someone in your corner that understands the data, that keeps you also accountable, and that adjusts things when you fall off. This is actually where, you need someone that listens. You need someone basically that can make a difference. So big shout out to Jorn and the Cellular team for letting me test the method far outside of the podcast, and also for guiding me through step by step in this whole experience. If you are interested in working together with Jorn, as said, this is not a paid ad. I just got the chance to test it with them together. He didn't really know that I was filming the whole experience, so I also wanted to provide an honest experience. But I can definitely recommend working with Jorn. He's an amazing guy. He knows what he's doing, and he can really change your life and in the next 5 weeks. And who knows, maybe your next 5 weeks can look completely different too. If you just take the first step, visit the website, reach out to Jorn. He's very happy to have a chat with you and see what he can do for you. For now, I'm over and out. I try to keep up the consistency as much as I can. And maybe I'm going to do another self-experiment in the near future.